Hey, can you hear me okay? I have no idea what I'm doing with this streaming stuff, so I think it's working. Nice. All right. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's working. I think there's a delay. I'm pretty sure this is how this works. I'm using like a Mac from 2015, and the amount of hoops I had to jump through to get this to work was crazy. I almost gave up. But what I'm planning to do is basically I was going to make a video going through uh, the mix of Here Ever After, and I sort of thought instead of pretending to uh, talk to people, I may as well talk to actual people if they're online. The only thing is I didn't think about the time, so I had to get up pretty early for this. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. How do I even find the stream on YouTube? I'm new to all of this. Thanks, Danny. That means a lot. Yeah, so you're from Peru. I sort of figured most of our subscribers are from either South America or the US, and there's some from Europe. So I sort of thought, oh well, I better find a time that works for people that actually watch me. All right, so I'll get started in a second. So I have all of my tracks on the left-hand side here, and I have like a very straightforward workflow that I like to use when I'm mixing. But my idea was I would basically just start from the top of when I make a cover video, where I start from and like what sort of mixing I do until I get to the final version. So let me... The only thing is my computer is really struggling recently, so it's probably going to crash a bunch of times today. But that's okay. Oh, 10 p.m. in Spain. Yeah, good. Nice. Yeah, it's like 6 a.m. here. Um, I'm in Australia, if you can't tell by my accent. So that's okay. I'd rather do it to 10 people than 0 people, so you know. All right, so I mean, when I make a cover, well, any recording really, the first thing I do is obviously you work out the tempo of the song, and I do like to record to a click, but I don't like to record to a strict grid click. So what I normally do is make some sort of groove first that is similar to the groove of the song, or you know, if it's an original song, come up with some sort of groove to play along to. I much prefer to play along to an actual groove than to play along to a click. The thing is, I'm not really much of a drummer, so I don't really have space for a drum kit, and I've never learnt how to play drums like formally or anything like that. But I do feel pretty comfortable with hand percussion. So I have these two like hand percussion drums. One is a djembe, which is, I think most people know what a djembe is. But the other one is this darbuka. Drum, and it's a drum from like Northern Africa in the Middle East. I won't play it here because it's 6 a.m. But you can get like a kick and a snare sound out of it. I'm still learning how to play it, but basically the first thing I did for this song was actually record a groove on that, and I was so happy with it that I ended up just keeping it until the final version because it kind of sounds like a high tom on a drum kit, right? So this is going to work for me. Come on. I refuse to upgrade my computer. So I'm running Pro Tools 11 or something like that, and Mavericks, which is an Mac OS from like 2014. I don't think it likes it very much when I'm streaming, but hopefully we'll get through. Oh, cool, South Carolina. That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people think we're American. I guess it makes sense because I sing with an American accent most of the time because of the songs we do. The Australian accent for singing hasn't really caught on, I think. So most of us in Australia, I think when we grow up singing songs, we sing it in like an American or a British accent because that's where most of the music comes from. And even like Australian bands, they tend to do that as well. Okay, I might just playback engine this. All right. Yeah, so I just recorded the groove for Here Ever After on the darbuka drum first. Let me know if there's a problem with the mix of the music in Pro Tools. Hey Pavel, I've been to Bali, only for 1 week, but it was really nice. We climbed the volcano. That was my favorite part of the trip. So for each section, I was basically just improvising a different groove. I'm still learning how to play this drum, but you can hit the middle of the drum and get like a bass drum hit, and you can slap the top rim of the drum. It's very different sounds, which is really handy for recording something like this. So I put a few EQ and put an EQ and a compressor on it because I ended up keeping it for the final version, but I wasn't planning on doing that. So the next thing I did was do a djembe as well. And it kind of sounds all right already without a drum kit, to be honest. Like I probably could have gotten away with just using this. So that was my bass track. So I recorded all of the instruments to this instead of a click, which is something that I prefer to do rather than using a click, because I just feel it gets a little bit stale if you use a click. And the next thing I did was record drum kit on top of this, basically. So I'll try and add back my kick. So I've got the drum kit kick, and then I've also got a sample on top of it, which is like a sub. It's like a club sub kick. And I layer that with the drum kit kick to give it a little bit more beef, basically. And then the snare drum. So I've got this snare drum from the drum kit, but then I also used a bunch of snare samples. And I like to use snare samples to, I'm like recording in a very small square room. And so if I'm playing drum kit, there's a lot of reflections. So that's one of the reasons I put the towels over the top of the drums, is to try and keep it as dry as possible. And then I'll use samples to make it sound like there's a bit more of a actual drum kit in a drum room. Some of these are doubled, I think, like these two we don't need. And then that's basically it. To keep it interesting, I'll add some different snare samples. Like I added this one, I don't know what this is. It's called Snare D. Sometimes I name things and I don't remember why. Just makes it sound a bit different. When the fills are coming in, there might be a different snare drum sound, which, you know, in a situation where you have a skilled drummer, they can hit it in a different way to get a different sound, right? And so, again, I'm not really a drummer, so I sort of emulate that with the samples. The other really cool thing I used is this snare sample here is actually just a gun being fired. And I got this off Warren Hewitt, which is one of the producing YouTubers. He has like a free sample pack you can download. And this is, I believe it's literally just a gun being fired off. So normally I mix in two screens, so I'm trying my best to navigate between these. So I put this on the interlude and the solo, just to give the snare a little bit more presence. Hey Damien, what's up? It sounds like it's a decent time in Poland, so... So the snare just like hangs around a bit more in the mix when I add in the snare, the gun sample. And then cymbals, again, because I'm in a really small room that's quite square, I like to do cymbals separately, because otherwise the reflections just bleed into everything. So all my cymbals are recorded separately, and I think I used a couple of samples to emulate like cymbal overheads as well. Because normally when you record a cymbal, you'll have microphones on the snare drum and the hi-hat and things like that will pick up the cymbal. But then normally you also have overhead microphones that pick up the cymbals at the top, and then room microphones that pick up the reflections and things like that. It's pretty difficult to emulate this when you're doing it dry if you don't have all the microphones set up. So I normally use samples to make it sound like an actual drum kit, basically. So like I have one left cymbal, one right cymbal, and then two that sort of sound like overhead microphones. And then the song definitely has shakers in it, but it's so compressed that it was really difficult to hear. Once I added them, I was really happy with it. So I mean, I've got a hi-hat in here. This is just me opening and closing the hi-hat with my foot, and my hi-hat sounds terrible. But once you add in the the shakers, it sounds pretty good. So I have an egg shaker, which is just like very high pitched. You almost don't notice it if you're not listening for it. And then I also have like a samba Brazilian shaker that I used in the interlude and in the solo. I find especially with shakers, I mean, if you're that point where I like to record to the groove rather than just a straight click, it makes the shakers sound so much better when you're shaking with the original groove. The samba shakers have a much more like brittle, beefier sound. So at this point, I ended up keeping the hand percussion because it sounded like the toms in the drums. Like in the song, Chad is playing all of that, obviously in one take, but he's hitting the top tom and the floor tom, and the hand percussion sounded just like the toms. In fact, I was quite happy with how thick I got them to sound. So like I put this microphone on the top of the drum, and I also put one like in the bottom of the shell. So this is the top microphone. Actually, if it lets me... Oh, it's grouped them. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, so the top microphone captures the slapping quite nicely. And the one in the shell captures that fundamental and if you get the phase inversion right, which I'll explain when I get to the bass guitar, it sounds pretty fat. Thanks, guys. Yeah, you're right. 100% right. I find it really difficult to use shakers with a straight click because it never sounds good. But when you add the shaker at the end on top of other percussion that has a good groove, it makes it sound so much better. And I couldn't figure that out for the longest time. And I think it's because shakers, like the whole point of the shaker is adding accents and adding you're basically allowing the groove to sit at like the top end of the spectrum, right? And if there's no groove to begin with, it just doesn't sound good. So yeah, that's the drums basically. I sort of had to reconstruct it from scratch, but I ended up keeping in all of the hand percussion because it sounded so good. I was so surprised at how big it sounded compared to the rest of the drums. I never really planned on keeping it there. So what I do is in my workflow, all of these tracks, once I'm happy with the sound itself, I will then print it down into a smaller track. So I printed all the hand percussion in a stereo track that's left and right. I printed the kick sound by itself, the snare, the cymbals, the shakers, and then, the floor tom as well on top. Because I just find if you're not committing to sounds as you go along, you just end up with so many tracks and so many plugins running, and you're not really, when you go to tweak things, it just ends up so messy and it's unnecessary. Another cool thing that I like to do is when I'm doing this, again, this room that I'm in now sounds really bad for drums because of how square it is. So I record everything as dry as possible, and then I use samples, but you sort of still want it to all sound like it's in the same room. So I create a drum room track by sending all of the recorded instruments to a new track. And I've got some experience recording live drums, right? So I've got a good idea of in the room drum mics how loud the kick normally is, how loud the snare normally is, how loud the cymbals are. And then I send those to this track until it sounds about right, like a room microphone. And then you just add a reverb So I really love the default Pro Tools plate reverb. And it sounds pretty close to a drum room. I did turn up the hand percussion louder than a drum room normally would because I'm trying to make it sound like toms, right? And normally in a drum room, toms are pretty loud. And now everything sounds like it is in the same room, or it's in the same place. In terms of the buses, so I send all of these drums to 2 different buses. The first one is my regular drum bus. So I roll off the very, very low end on the drums because there's a lot of sound that's happening at the very lowest end that you can't even really hear. So I tend to high pass that a little bit and then just run like a very light compressor. So what I like to do, instead of compressing the drums a lot, you have one compressor that is quite light and then another compressor that's really heavy. So this is called using parallel compression. So the parallel compressor, normally you boost the lows and the highs, and then you compress it really severely. And then what you can do is you can basically dial up the 2 different compression types until you get the balance that you want. So the one that's lightly compressed will sound more like you're in a live room with drums, but the parallel compression basically adds like energy almost into the drum sound. So that's without the bus. This is the normal compression. And the parallel compression is way more severe. It's almost like that Tame Impala sounding drum kit stuff, right? So if the drums are really simple, you can add a lot more of this parallel compression. And if there's a lot of other instruments happening in the mix, you can add a lot more of the parallel compression. In a song like this, there's quite a lot of like soft percussion happening. So I didn't add too much, but you can tell even just adding it in a little bit, it gives a little bit more like energy to the drums. Yeah, I was very happy with the drum sound in this song. So what I do then, I just print all of that down to one stem track. Otherwise, I'll keep fiddling with it. Hey, how you going? Thanks for listening. I'm glad that it hasn't exploded yet. For anyone that just tuned in, I'm using a computer from like 2015. I can't update the OS on my Mac because any newer version of OS makes my Pro Tools not work, basically. And I don't want to upgrade my Pro Tools because I've used the new version and it's basically the same thing. And I already own it. So I'm trying desperately to hold on to this this old version of Pro Tools and my computer, and my internet browser almost doesn't work, but somehow I found like an OBS streaming software from 2016 and so far it's working, so I just hope that it stays that way. All right, so the next thing I'll go through is going to be the bass. So I was also really happy with the bass guitar sound for this track. I'll take you through each one individually. It's not often that I record bass with a pick. So I was expecting to experiment a little bit with it. But actually, I was pretty happy with the sound straight out of the amp. So I've got one DI going straight in, and then also a microphone on the cab. So this is the, let me turn off the plugins first. This is the DI. And like, once again, I'm recording this to the actual groove and not a straight click makes such a big difference. Honestly, I think the biggest thing to making this sort of stuff sound good is actually just having a good sense of groove rather than being like amazing at your instrument, for example. So that's the DI. The amplifier sounds a little bit different, the microphone. It's got a lot more gain on it. You notice that together it sounds really thin. Yeah, I'll probably cover it. I sort of wanted to save some of those songs for doing it with Cameron. But at this stage, like, I'm not sure when both of us will be available to do stuff together. So I just don't want to make any promises about what Cameron can and can't do. But yes, Black Summer, originally I wanted to do it with Cameron and James. But we'll see. We'll just see how the year goes. So yeah, so the DI and the bass amp together sound pretty thin, and the reason is that the DI, you're getting like an instant signal into the interface, but when you're putting a microphone on a speaker, it takes time for the sound to come out of the speaker and actually hit the microphone. And it's not a lot of time, but because the sources, the actual audio, is so similar, this thing occurs where the phase of the two sources actually cancels each other out a bit, and you lose a lot of the low end of the bass. So what you have to do is go into, where's a good point? Maybe here. You can like go into the waveform and find out exactly how much extra time it takes for the sound to hit the speaker, to hit the microphone. And then in the software, I'm sure other software use this as well. You can look at exactly how many samples the difference is. So you're going to get the DI first, which is this little point here. And then the same point on the microphone is this point. And you can see here that the difference is 39 samples. So what you do is you then time adjust. I put a time adjuster on the DI to delay it by 39 samples exactly. And the difference is massive. All of the bass comes back. So this is without the time adjuster. And this is with. It's like 10 times better. I don't know if anyone was around listening to us in like 2016, but I did not know this. And everyone was commenting like, I can't hear the bass guitar. And then I sort of figured out why. It was because we were doing this recording technique. And I had no idea about the phase cancellation. Thanks very much, Harab Burel. Yeah, I think we've just been so busy the past few years, but we still do music stuff. It's just YouTube content takes a long time to make. And that's partly our fault for making YouTube content that takes a long time to make. So I've been trying to do YouTube content that doesn't take so long to make. Each of these covers, it's like several days of work before you even like get in a room with other people and do the video side of things. So I'm trying to figure out ways to like make stuff without every single video taking days of work. So this is before we even add like any EQ or compression or anything. The bass already sounds really great. The next thing I'll do is split, especially a song like this where we're using a pick. I'll split the DI of the bass with an EQ. So from 250 Hertz and above on one of them. So it's the same DI signal. And then the other one, 250 Hertz and below. And that way I can apply compression to the lower end at a much greater amount compared to the top end. It's one of the problems with getting a clear bass sound is you want to compress the low end a lot, but in order for the bass to sound really present and feel like hear the fingers on the strings, you don't want it compressed too much. So when you're using a pick, I really like to do this technique where you split the DI signal into two separate parts. You can get plugins that do this without splitting it, like a multi-band compression type thing. I just like to do it this way because I can adjust exactly. It's just something I've always done basically, and it doesn't take too much time. So on the bass part of the DI, add a really heavy compression. It's almost like a club bass. And then the top end, you can add saturation and distort it a little bit, and it's not going to make the lower end too distorted. We can add the bass amp back in. Now it sounds really beefy. But because I'm able to distort the picking sound, oh nice. Okay. Because I'm able to distort the picking sound, it's still got a lot of presence in the mix. I need a chat moderator, hey. Can I time this thing now? Oh, there we go. Okay. Nice, okay. So yeah, you notice that the biggest thing here, yeah, I don't know if I have enough viewers to need a moderator, but anyway, it obviously happens on every stream. Yeah, you notice that the biggest thing here is not actually like some sort of magic compression on the bass or magic EQ. The thing that makes the biggest difference is actually just getting the phase cancellation right. It took me so long to understand that, and it makes such a big difference to the way that the bass sounds. So just like the others, I'll also say I normally compress the bus of the bass. So you send each of these tracks, right, to a single bus where you can apply stuff to all of them. So I add like a little bit of saturation. Let me just play this part. So the saturation just warms it up. So I like to add a little, I don't like to add big amounts of saturation at the end. I like to just add little bits along the way. And I've also got like an analog mixing desk, just a very small one that has an analog EQ on it. And I find when I run it through there pretty hot, there's a fair bit of nice saturation that already happens. I thought about getting one like a more expensive preamp, but honestly it does the job. I've just got like a very cheap like PA mixing desk, and it does a really nice job of warming the tracks up. I also add compression on the bass bus, and I don't really have a good reason for this other than it sounds better with it on, and so I always do it. It just sounds loose and messy without a bus compression. I record the bass in mono, yeah. I've never tried doing it in stereo. So it's not that I prefer it or anything like that. I've just never done it. I'm not sure what the benefits are, to be honest. Most of my bass I always keep very centered, so. And yeah, I like Josh Klinghoffer. I think he's a really fantastic musician. To be honest, I mean, I sort of feel like the rest of the band maybe didn't get the best out of him rather than the other way around. Like it's clear that Josh is extremely talented and like a very flexible songwriter, and I think you can really hear that he was doing his best to fit in. But I think if Josh was given the opportunity to like be a lead songwriter with musicians that are as good as, you know, everyone else in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you get some really fantastic music. So it is. I think it's a bit of a shame that it didn't work out, to be honest. I do like those albums. Like they're still really good albums. But I think that I think Josh could be a really. Yeah, I don't think they got the best out of him. I just think people say the other way around. It's like the band's not as good with him, which I sort of agree with in a way. Like John is such an iconic musician, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers are better off with him in it for sure. But I just think it's a shame that Josh was in the band for so long and we didn't really see. I don't feel like we've got the potential that we could have seen with those four, unfortunately. Yeah, thanks very much. My singing advice is just to sing a lot. So, like, I was never a singer growing up. Cameron and I started another band in high school, and I was originally the drummer for a while. And then we found a guy who like could actually play drums. So he was now the drummer. And the instrument that I was actually good at that age was piano. But the music we liked didn't really have a lot of piano, which was a problem. So I ended up just being the singer, even though I couldn't sing. And the only reason I can sing now is because I sang so much. So my only advice is just to do it often. Obviously, if you have, health problems with your voice, you should see a vocal coach. I saw one for a couple of years at one stage because I, in my infinite wisdom, found out that I could sing kind of like Jeff Buckley. And then after I tried doing that for about a year, I started to lose my voice. So I thought, I'm obviously not doing something very healthy. So I saw a vocal coach for, I'd say maybe 18 months to try and fix some of my issues there. And it did sort it out. I now know how to sing healthy, and I realized that's probably not Jeff Buckley. But in the 90s, everyone was just singing with no regard to their vocal health, right? Kurt Cobain would have just destroyed his voice if he kept singing that way through the 90s. But yeah, my only advice is to just sing a lot. And if you're finding that you've got pain or you've got like a haze, like an unhealthy haze forming in your voice, you should definitely see a vocal coach. But I wouldn't say that seeing a vocal coach made my voice sound better. It was more of a health thing, to be honest. Yeah, I think Josh like originally suffered from the fact that he wasn't John, of course. But I do think in hindsight those albums will hold up pretty well. How often do you mix isolated instruments? Oh yeah, so I used to mix isolated instruments uh, all the time, and I just found it takes too long. So what I do now is I like do one thing, I get the sound that I'm happy with, like the bass. I get the sound that I'm happy with, and the rhythm that I'm happy with. I find now when I'm at the start of this stream, I spoke about creating like a groove instead of recording to a click, and that's helped my efficiency recording this stuff so much because I no longer have to worry about the bass and the drums and the guitars being in time. If you're recording to a groove, you can be out of time and it still sounds really good. So now I record to the groove. Most of the time I don't need to make time adjustments that often anymore. And then I just commit to that sound once I'm happy with it. I also have a fair bit of experience now mixing, right? So I guess it's easier when you know what sound you're going for. You don't really need to mix isolated instruments all together. Like you can see my track list on the left-hand side, right? If I was to mix all of these individually, this is what I used to do, and it would just be really messy. So now I just commit to a sound and I print it. So like the bass, once I'm happy with this sound, I will just print that down into a bass stem. And I try my best not to mix between the instruments until I get to this stage. Because I can always delete this stem and go back to the individual instruments and change things if I need to. So it's more of a psychological thing, I think. And just a workflow thing to like keep you moving and not get stuck wondering what the thing is you need to change. My favorite song of all time. Oh man. I'll have to think about it. I'll get back to you. I really have a thing for Minor Thing. It's my favorite song to play. I don't know what it is about Minor Thing, but it's just such a banger. I wish they played it live more often. I don't know if that's my favorite song of all time though. It's definitely up there. It's hard to think of one song, to be honest. I also really like She Looks to Me. That's a really I think Minor Thing and She Looks to Me are probably my favorites. I don't have a good reason for it other than like the first time I listened to them, I was just blown away. And I think it's that memory of being, like a teenager and listening to it for the first time and being like, oh my God. I don't necessarily think they're the best songs, but I have that really nice memory of them. So what have we got next? We've got guitar. Nice. All right. So this song has got guitar in the left ear and guitar in the right ear. It's like double tracked basically. And in the original song, they're so close. So John did a really good job of making like identical takes. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, is they're two separate identical takes. Even the bends in the solo are like really, really similar. And I'm pretty confident they are different takes. So it took me a while to do these because my takes, I just couldn't get like a consistent take between two different guitar parts. I'm not really I wouldn't call myself a guitarist. Like I played a fair bit of guitar now, obviously, but I normally leave that job for Cameron, right? So I use for the tone in these guitars, I use Cameron's DS1 is at my house. I think John's using the DS1 pretty commonly at the moment. And a lot of gain through the Fender Bassman, but not too much. The Fender Bassman is like a very old amplifier. Mine isn't old. You can you can buy them brand new, but it's something that's been around since the 60s. And when you turn it up quite high, it becomes really fuzzy, like Jimi Hendrix fuzz. So I try and find the spot where it's not fuzzy, and then just dial it back a little bit from there, and then add the DS1 in, and it sounds pretty decently close. I did struggle to get an identical tone for John's guitar. I think that when he records with Rick Rubin, they record at really high volumes, and it's difficult to emulate that at low volumes in my experience. So I like to leave the guitars really brittle, so a lot of the high end is still on these tracks. That way, if I want to roll off more of that high end later in the mixing stage, I can. I don't like to commit to removing the brightness too early. So I've got one microphone on the amplifier, which is an SM57. And then I've got another one in the room, maybe like 2 meters behind the amplifier. That sounds really nice by itself, to be honest, the room microphone. So again, you want to make sure that just like the bass guitar, you want to make sure that the phase is in line, so you're not losing any of the low end. And I just try and find a balance between mixing these two. Usually if the song has a lot of guitars, I won't record with the room microphone that much, because I find if you have too many room microphones on the guitars that it gets a little bit messy. But together they sound pretty good. There's enough of like the attack coming through on the close microphone, and enough presence coming with the room. This part I did so many takes, and it wasn't because I played it incorrectly, it's because I couldn't get the bends on both takes to match up exactly. I got it pretty close in the end, but it's still not as close as the original track. I don't know if they used the same take and they like put it out of phase or out of time a little bit, or John just did like 2 incredibly identical bends, like within cents. Like mine, you can still hear that it's 2 guitars. But with John's track, you can't tell that it's 2 guitars, really, like unless you are really listening. Like obviously there's one in each ear, but when you bring it down to mono and you listen to it, it just sounds like 1 guitar. It's pretty impressive, to be honest. So yeah, these are still sounding a little bit brittle, so I think I rolled off a little bit of the high end on this. And I added in a little bit of 250 hertz. I think it was just not sitting beefy enough, and a little bit of saturation. The guitars are probably the one thing I would change if I was to do this mix again. But because I'm doing it for YouTube, obviously I just try to prioritize getting it done quickly rather than making it perfect. Damien knows. So my friend Damien, who does a lot of our artwork, was watching before. I get him to listen to a lot of my mixes because I just need someone else to listen to it. When you work on one song for 2 days straight, you just go crazy and your ears stop working. So then both of those guitars were in mono, so I print that down to stereo tracks. So there's 1 take in the left ear and then 1 take in the right ear. And then I did a little bit of volume automation, as you can see here, just to try and the same part in the verse and the chorus. The verse has a lot more presence because John's playing the part much further down the neck. So the tone is a lot sharper down there, and the chorus is played like up around near the 7th fret. So it's a lot more of a mellow sound when the pick's hitting the strings. So even though the volume was the same overall, the sound in the mix of the guitars was like here in the verse and like here in the chorus. So I ended up having to do some volume automation to turn it up in the chorus and turn it down in the verse. Oh, my oopsies. This happens. I think my sound card died. Oh yeah, I love the B-sides. I really want to hear that album that they started making in like 2004 or 2005. Leverage of Space is great, and I love Runaway as well. That's such a good song. Yeah, and Rivers of Avalon, I agree. I don't know if it's because when you listen to one band so much, the B-sides start sounding good because they're like a new gem, but they are really great songs, and it is really surprising that they didn't make the albums. But then again, they are a band that are pretty notorious for having great songs that don't make albums. So, and you can't really blame them for making the wrong decision when they're so successful, right? So, yeah, the key change in She Looks to Me is amazing. Yeah, my ears just don't work after a day of mixing. Well, actually, I only have one ear that works. My right ear is almost 100% deaf. So I'm mixing with one ear, and it's by the end of the day, I just I will finish up the day, and then the next morning I'll go and listen to my mix, and it's just like all over the place. So I think you just get fatigued and you just stop hearing things clearly. All right, let's try this again. So you can hear the takes are they're pretty consistent. They're pretty close to each other. I tried to get it as close as possible, but I mean, I would be there all day recording guitars. So I just left it how it was. It's pretty good. On the guitars, I basically compressed it. I compressed it again once I printed the stems. And I think I was more just experimenting, trying to get the right guitar sound. I think in the end, I probably over-compressed the guitars a little bit for this song. So if I was to adjust this mix, I'd probably uncompress the guitars a bit and maybe do a little bit more volume automation instead. And then I like to do a couple of things that just make the takes sound like they're glued together a little bit. So I added a little bit of flanger, only a tiny amount, like 8%. A little bit of saturation. So this one here, the J37 plugin, it's basically a like a tape emulator. I'll see if I can get this to... I'll have to do both. So you can basically emulate tape saturation and also the tape flutter and wow. So I haven't figured out a way to use that yet, but I love the way that it sounds. But I normally add a little bit in because when you start adding just tiny amounts of effects, like a little bit of flanger, a little bit of chorus, a little bit of saturation and tape wow, it just sort of glues all of the tracks together and makes them seem like they're part of the same thing, right? Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, it sounds like, yep. But it's pretty cool, like how much of those like analog tones you can get just from using some of these plugins. They're so useful. Yeah, the ticket prices are so high. I agree. I mean, I sort of understand why the musicians are doing it, because it's so hard to make money. But I'm not the biggest fan of the music labels at the moment. My cover of this song is probably going to get removed because YouTube thinks it's the actual song. rather than a cover. And I've like filed a dispute which was rejected because I doubt they even looked at it, to be honest. And I've appealed that, but if that's not successful, I think my video gets taken down, which is like, yeah. On one hand, it's nice that I made something so close to the original that the algorithm didn't pick it up, but it sort of discourages me from doing it again, you know? I mean, it's not even that I can't monetize it. It's like this video might actually just get removed, which is just really annoying. We don't really make money from these covers anyway because we have to share like 80% of the revenue with the music labels. But it would be nice if it could just stay on YouTube, yeah. Oh, well, we will see. If it gets taken down, I don't know what I'll do. I'll just re-upload it with a worse version. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the reason that you couldn't hear the bass is because I didn't know about the phase cancellation stuff. It wasn't our bass player's fault. Yeah, we do. Brazilian fans, you guys are the best, honestly. You're just so nice and enthusiastic about everything. All right, I digress. So for the guitars, I added a few effects, and what I do for these is I like to add them on separate bus channels. So I've got a delay channel. Let me, I might do it on the solo section so it's a little easier to hear. Oh, I've still got that thing on, so let's turn that off. So I've got like a digital delay happening on one of them. And then what I do is sidechain this to one of the other buses. So what that means is as the guitar is playing, the delay effect is the volume is low. And then as when the guitar stops, the volume of the delay comes back up. So you only really hear the delay at the end of a phrase. I might just play one of these tracks and center it so that it's not so annoying to listen to. So you can see here the volume reduction. So when it stops, the delay comes back. But when the rest of the guitar is playing, you're not getting delay like building up in the guitar tracks constantly. And then I added a track which had some saturation and chorus. So I like to add a little bit of chorus. Actually, I added a fair amount on these ones, probably because there were two different takes in the left and right ear. I find adding just a tiny amount of chorus just glues the guitar takes together so much. Hey Christopher, how are you? Yeah, that's a shame. The copyright is just so annoying, honestly. It's so frustrating because it's, you know, anyone can claim on anything and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, is my microphone ducking? Or is it the mix? Yeah, I'm going to do that one. Matthews. Is it Matthews or Matthews? I can never remember, sorry. Yeah, I really like that song too. But I just, I've got an idea of what to do for the trumpets, but I just have to try it out first. Yeah, we'll see. I can't play trumpet, nor do I have a trumpet, so I can play trombone a little bit, but I don't have one anymore. So that's pretty much it. I added like reverb, delay, saturation, and chorus on the guitars, just to glue the two different tracks together. these tracks onto one separate guitar track. So I was saying earlier, I try my best not to mix the volume of the guitars. Okay, fair enough, yeah. All right, maybe I should listen on Google Translate. Mind you, sometimes the pronunciation's really bad, right? So it might be worse. Yeah, I try my best not to mess with the volumes too much before I get to this stage. That way I can do most of the volume mixing at the very end, because I just find that you end up changing so much of it once you get to the end anyway. Cool, so that's our instrumental track. I'm so glad I kept the darbuka hand percussion in there. It just cuts through the mix so well. I think I got a better sound out of it than when I record toms on a drum kit. So then we have vocals. So let me find these. Yeah, it does sound like a bit of a getaway song, doesn't it? All right. Oh, I've heard of Cakewalk. Is Cakewalk it's a company, right? Do they make plugins, or is Cakewalk, or is it a DAW? I have heard of it, but I just can't quite remember. And yeah, thanks. I mean, most of the stuff I use is like the basic plugins. I've got a couple of ones that I've purchased over the years, like that tape saturator one is one of my favorite ones that I've actually bought. But I mean, I've probably bought less than 10 plugins over the years. Like, yeah, like honestly, maybe Auto-Tune, the tape saturator. Other than that, like I mostly use the default plugins that came with Pro Tools and the audio interface that I bought. Yeah, I did notice the auto-tune on this song in the original, and I think there's a reason for it, is that the vocals have so many slides in them. Maybe I can find one of the takes and put auto-tune on it to show you, because like I normally use auto-tune, but not in like a blanket sense. Auto-tune is something that saves a lot of time. Like if you have, I'll just show you basically, but if you have takes that have like 1 or 2 notes in them that could be better, auto-tune just saves you from going back and doing another entire take. The problem is that it makes you sound worse. I think one of the big misconceptions with auto-tune is that it makes bad singers sound good, and that's not really the case. Like if you sing really poorly and try and auto-tune it, it just sounds terrible. But if you've sung pretty well and there's a couple of notes that could be better, you can go in and like draw those on and save you a ton of time. So what I normally use if I use auto-tune is the graph setting. So like I can show you, I think this will work hopefully. So there's an automatic setting that you can, hang on, I'll try and.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man.
You can hear how bad that sounds, right? So you can set the like the retune speed if you want to sound like T-Pain.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man. Banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down.
And you can set the key. What key is this song in? is in G major. I think so.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea.
So like if you use the like set it to a speed that sounds more natural.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged her mom cause I...
It still sounds really bad, right? So what I normally use is the graph function. So you can track the pitch. And I'll show you...
I was brave and I loved my...
I think the original song does have a lot of... Yeah. Yep. I think the original song does have auto-tune on it. And I think the reason it doesn't sound good is because of the way the vocals are written. So let's see. Track pitch. Yeah.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea.
So obviously that sounds pretty bad with the auto-tune on it. But so what you can do is you can go in and like physically draw stuff. But you can look at my vocal, right? It's like constantly sliding up and down. So if you try and auto-tune this, that's why it sounds so bad, I think, is Anthony's vocals are so up and down constantly. And like that's not a bad thing. I think it sounds really good. I think the problem is when you try and auto-tune it, it's never going to sound right. Because if you look at, this is me singing the song, right? So I'm going up to the pitch and then I'm coming back down. And then I'm going up to the pitch and I'm coming back down. And the amount of time that's actually spent on the note is tiny. So if you're auto-tuning, look, I'm not suggesting like the engineers for the Red Hot Chili Peppers don't know what they're doing, because I'm sure that they do. But my point is, like, if you apply auto-tune to this, none of, like, 20% of that note is actually on the note. The rest of it is sliding. So for example, like if I was going to record, like, you know, a proper song with my band or something, I normally use my ears and I can hear if the note's not good. But like this one here, you can see I overshot the note by like a little bit. So you can like grab the tool and like even that out a little bit to make sure you're hitting the note and not overshooting it. Yeah, there is. I just don't really use it, to be honest. This is the only function I really use on auto-tune is this. Like if I've done a take that I like and sounds really good and there's like a couple of notes that are off, like this one looks pretty off, I might go in and like draw those on to fix it so that I don't have to do another take. But if you do it too much, you lose all of your vibrato. It sounds kind of nasty in my opinion. There's other software, like there's one called Melodyne, which I think is what most professional studios use. And it's probably better, to be honest. I find this one, which is a really old version of Auto-Tune, if I overuse it, it sounds really bad. Like when you're applying auto-tune to your voice, it does make your voice sound worse. So in my opinion, you want to be using it as little as possible. And like, if you can't hear that it's being used, you're probably using it correctly, in my opinion. But anyway, I just wanted to demonstrate like why I think the auto-tune on the original track doesn't sound good, and it's because Anthony's never on the note. So yeah, you could like go in manually and draw the slides in and stuff, I guess. So I don't know if that's what they did, or I really have no idea. But that's my guess as to why people don't like the auto-tune on that track. I honestly didn't bother with it for this because it's rapping, so you don't really. It still sounds good if you're not perfectly on the note. So anyway, so for the vocals, I recorded obviously the main take. Oh, let me just see what I've got. Doubles. Oh yeah, so these are the original tracks here. These are my original takes. So normally I'll record like 4 or 5 takes for each one. And then for each verse, I'll pick, like, you can see here the boxes, right? So I'll pick the best verse for that section and I'll put it here. And then I'll pick the best verse for that next bit and I put it here. Yeah, exactly. If you can't hear the auto-tune, it's probably working well. But yeah, I didn't really use it for this song because it wasn't really necessary. Like this song, you can get, because it's rapping, you can get really consistent takes, right? The difference between a good take and a bad take isn't so much to do with the pitch. It's to do with like I'm not a rapper, right? So, but it's to do with more of the like energy and the style of doing it.
I was brave.
So, sorry, I'm gonna break your ears.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up.
So then once I've got like a good, first take across the whole song, I'll record a second take, which is a double. And I record that at the end because you want to make sure that the double is close to the original.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea.
Like I had to do a couple of comping here.
Where my be can I give it up for that? Where my be can I?
But I got them pretty close in the end. And then I did the same thing with the chorus. So let me get rid of these ones. And then I print those tracks above here. So we've got and that's where I apply more like heavier compression. When I do the original take, I normally just add a little bit of saturation. I guess fix any pitching issues that are there. Do a little bit of EQ. By the end of the vocals, I've probably put like 6 very light compressors on and like 2 different types of saturation.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea.
The other thing I'll do is I will grab the verse and put auto-tune on it and just drop it by an octave so that you have an octave. You can record this without doing this. Like you could just record it an octave lower. But I just like to do it this way. It's quick.
And banged her mom cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea. I was brave. Go faster now. She's the kind of girl to make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny.
And like you can hear that really clearly, but in the mix of the whole song, you can't tell really that the octave is there. Yeah, I don't know if they're the real lyrics, hey. I'm pretty sure it's her mum. But I know the official lyrics say A. But yeah, I'm reading between the lines. I don't think they're played in Australia yet. I think they're coming soon, from what I understand. I don't know if tickets are even available. I've seen them advertised. I haven't decided if I want to pay like $300 yet to see them. The other thing I add is a morphoder. So a morphoder takes out all of the harmonic content or the melodic content of the track and gives you basically the breath. And I just use the default setting.
I don't know, but it's finally just one more mile. Peaches are sold and all giving up with that Humpty style.
So I add this to taste to give like air to the vocals without boosting the trebles or the higher frequencies. Because when you start boosting the higher frequencies, it becomes really brittle. And I use like I use a Neumann U87 microphone for the vocals. So I've just answered your question, which was serendipitous. And so like when you start boosting the trebles on that, it becomes really overwhelming and brittle. So when you use a morphoder, you can dial in the breath of the song so that it basically gives the illusion that you're adding in breath or like high end to it.
It's fun.
Sorry, let me add these.
Just one more mile, pictures are sold and out, giving up with that Humpty style. At the cowboys crash from the blacktop, she's Eurasian, met her at the quick stop. We danced that TT's girlfriend's back now, she's gone solo.
So they sound pretty funny by themselves, but when you add in the actual vocal, it's not too bad.
I don't know, but it's finally just one more mile. Peaches are sold and all giving up with that Humpty style. I don't know, but it's finally just one more mile. Peaches are sold and all giving up with that Humpty style.
So you can, when you isolate it, you can sort of hear the morphoda on top, but you can't notice it when you're listening to the entire track. The other thing is, for the choruses, I wanted a bit more of a stereo double effect, so I added another couple of takes. And with these ones, I normally sing with a lot more breath than usual.
She's the kind of girl to make you want.
And then for all of the doubles and the backing vocals, I'll like roll off the high end so that they're not getting in the way of the presence of the lead vocal.
She's the kind of girl.
And I added a chorus as well, I thought it sounded cool.
She's the kind of girl to make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl to make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. She's the kind of girl to make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl to make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny.
Yeah, I have seen them live. I saw them live at Big Day Out in, oh God, maybe 2000 and... I can't remember, to be honest. Funny story, though. Cameron went to see them maybe during the Stadium Arcadium tours. I can't remember which year. It was probably like 2006 or 7 or something like that. But my mum wouldn't let me go because she thought it was like the Sox version of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. She wasn't aware that the band had evolved from the Blood Sugar Sex Magic era. Still getting a lot of spam. So I would like to see them again because I haven't actually seen them with John. Yeah, I think... hang on, can I...
She's the kind of girl to make you want...
I could probably use the tape saturator for that, to be honest. Let me solo this.
She's the kind of girl to make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl to make
you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. She's the kind of girl to make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl to make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. She's the kind of girl to make you wanna
go faster now. She's the kind of girl.
But you just, as soon as you put in the final mix, you just lose it, which is the idea. But I mean, you could do anything to it really, and you wouldn't notice it in the final mix.
She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny.
Yeah, yeah, I do want to see John before they hang it up. To be honest, yeah, I think Cameron would do well in the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, we did get to go to Flea's house. That was really awesome. But we got off a plane with 17. It was like a 17-hour transit or something. We got off a plane, picked up in a cab and taken to his house to play with him. So we were incredibly tired and nervous, and it would have been nice to have one extra day to be there to sleep before we got there. But it was still good. It was still really fun, obviously. But yeah, it would have been nice to jam with him being rested and not so nervous about it all. But when you're in the moment, you have so much adrenaline meeting someone like that. So, but he was really what struck me about him was how normal and humble he was. So Hareburiel asked, how did we end up playing with Flea? There was this charity thing that Flea was doing where you could enter a competition basically. You donate a little bit of money and you enter a competition, and someone got to win to go to LA to meet Flea, and I won, and it was for tickets for 2 people. But we brought our bass player Tom with us as well, because he's a bass player. So it would have been really cool for him, I imagine. But yeah, we got to go to his house and jam with him in his garage, which is pretty great. Like, that's probably one of the highlights of my life, obviously. Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I was so happy. I can't play drums, but I just wanted to be involved, basically. Yeah, Flea was born in Australia, in Melbourne. I read his memoir. I thought it was quite good. It wasn't what I expected. I guess I expected more of an autobiographical thing, but yeah, it was an interesting read. It was a quick read for a native English speaker anyway. It didn't take very long to get through. I think I read it in like a day. Maybe it took 4 or 5 hours total. So there's our vocals. One other thing I'll add to the lead vocal is that same parallel compression, just to add like some excitement to it and dial that in if needed. Then there's also like a slap back. It's probably better with a rapping verse. Let's do this.
Where my be, can I give it up for that drugstore nose? So unique, can I live it up to that liquor store clothes? Where my be, can I give it up for that drugstore nose?
So that's just the standard plate reverb in Pro Tools, which I love. It's like my favorite reverb ever. I've got a couple of others that I bought or like obtained over the years. And nothing beats the plate reverb, in my opinion.
Where my be, can I give it up for that drugstore nose? So unique, can I live it up to that liquor store clothes? Where my be, can I give it up for that drugstore nose? So unique.
And then I'll add a slapback. So in the old school music studios, they had like slapback, like physical slapback echo things that would create this effect. So you can just use it basically with a delay. So I run like a 45 millisecond delay in the left ear and a 65 millisecond in the right ear. And it gives you like a slapback reflection, basically.
Can I live it up to that liquor store clothes? In the laundry queen ballistic, mangy face with a messed up lipstick. My thing is blacked out logos, smoking tears, now take my photos.
And you just add little amounts of this stuff.
Make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl that make you steal your child.
But I kept it pretty dry. Like I didn't add too much. I didn't add too much delay or reverb onto the track at the end. The original song is much drier than even mine, and that's probably because of the microphone that Anthony uses, which is an SM7. It has a much less. It's got less frequency response at the high end compared to the condenser that I use. And also just our voices are different too.
She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. I don't deny.
Well, the other thing I did was I printed the delay effect. I just used the J37. I use this for everything. But you can use like a feedback dial and then you can dial up the delay. So what I did was I recorded a take of this where I manually dialed up the tape delay. And then I printed that. I just printed that manually.
Deny. I don't deny.
And that's pretty much it. So then as I always do, I printed all of these to a single vocal track.
Don't deny. I don't know, but it's finally just one more mile. Peaches
you can hear all of the doubles and the octave and stuff
at the Caldwells, cross from the blacktop.
When it's isolated, but once you put it in the actual mix, they all disappear.
Giving up with that Humpty style. At the Caldwells, cross from the blacktop. She's Eurasian, met her at the quick stop. We danced at TT's go-go, girlfriend's back now. She's gone solo. She's the kind of girl
I'd love to engineer like a major label band. I think it would be so good. The only thing is I don't really know how to use their studios. So from what I understand, the producer can move between studios fairly easily, but like for the big labels, it costs a lot of money per day to make the track, right? So they want people that know the studio and like work in the studio. So it's pretty unlikely that you'll ever get the privilege, to be honest. But that's okay. I feel like you can emulate, as I've shown, you can emulate songs pretty closely to professional level, at least to the point where the algorithm thinks it's the original song. Yeah, Chad seems like the most normal person, doesn't he? But that said, like I say that he seems like that, but when I actually met Flea, he was incredibly normal. So I think a lot of the time it is just people's perception of the way people are, because the context you see them in is usually in the form of entertainment, right? So how they are on a day-to-day basis is always going to be different. Jack Irons. What is he? He was the guy that went to play in Pearl Jam, right? And yeah, thanks, Matthews. It's pretty heartbreaking that this will probably get taken down. So I submitted this to like the music stores as well, and normally it only takes a couple of days before it gets uploaded. But now I'm on like day 8, and it hasn't, like I haven't heard anything about it being accepted into stores. So I'm wondering if the same copyright algorithm is used for the music stores as well, and they think I'm submitting the original song. Pretty annoying, to be honest. Like, I feel like I have to... Like, sometimes I like doing covers that are different from the original, right? But I also, just for my skill as a musician and a producer, I like to copy stuff because it like helps you get inside the songs and like understand the decisions that the producers made and the musicians made. I think it's a really useful tool for making you a better musician. I do get the logic that if you're going to make a cover, you should make it different. And I think if you're like selling yourself as a cover musician, that makes a lot of sense. But for me, I do these. Well, we always did these more just to like hang out and play songs that we liked, right? So for me, these covers have always been about recreating them in a way that helps me become a better musician. And also the channel was just like I'm spending time with my best friend playing songs that we like. So we only ever really changed stuff if we felt that it sounded good or like it was interesting. Or like stuff like we did the encore cover, right? But in the bridge we did the live verse instead of the studio version. So we do stuff like that. But yeah, it's a shame because I do like trying to recreate things from scratch. And if this keeps happening, it's going to be pretty annoying. Yeah, I do take it as a compliment. Thanks though. I mean, I guess the thing is, like as I said, we don't really make money from it, so it's not even the monetization that matters. It's more just frustrating if the whole thing gets taken down and like no actual person reviews it, because it would only take someone to look at the video or even listen to the first verse to know that it's not the original song. So I don't know. I know that you're not allowed to upload karaoke to YouTube, so I do wonder if because it's close to the original, they think it's karaoke. I genuinely don't know, because you don't get a response from the music label. Like Warner Music just ticks a box that says, no, my claim is valid. So, I don't know. Oh yeah, I want to do that. I also thought about, because I mean, I've been thinking about things that I do in my spare time, which is like I watch YouTube a lot. So I know it's a bit cringy to do React videos, but I mean, I feel like I could do a video where I watch other people's like John Frusciante covers, because I don't feel like that's something that there is a platform for, you know what I mean? There's so many John Frusciante covers out there with like 100 views, and some of them are really good. And I don't even really know why it was our channel that blew up doing John covers, because there doesn't seem to be a market for it. Yeah, and then no, I know what you mean. So yeah, I thought that would be great as well. So I'm trying to think of ideas like that. Yeah, man, I want that 100K plaque. We probably would have got there already if we didn't try to go and be a band for a while. So let me talk about the mastering stage. So at this point, I like, if I'm doing a song for the band or like something for a client, I will generally not master it myself. I'll get James, our drummer, to master it, because he has a degree in music production, and also I think it's just good practice to have someone else do the mastering. But for these YouTube videos, I basically just try to do it myself a couple of hours later. So one thing I did was I actually sidechained the guitars to the vocals. And I'll just explain sidechaining again, because I do want to make a video out of this once I'm done. So I send the vocals to a bus track, and then I put that bus track into a key on a compressor. And as the vocals are playing, the volume of the guitars comes down.
I was brave and I loved my cause. She was waving that dope man up. Banged them on cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea.
Because I just found, once I printed everything and got to the final stage of mixing the stems, that the guitar was just a little bit too much in the way of the vocals. It's probably because I overcompressed it a bit. So I just sidechained the vocals to the guitar just to reduce the volume of the guitar while the vocal is playing, basically. And then when the vocal stops, the guitar comes back up. So I didn't really have to change the volume of this guitar solo or anything like that.
I don't know cause I got big temper. Stick close to my rainbow side. Candy corn and that dancing leopard. That's all, folks, that's all. She's the kind of girl who make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl who make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. I don't know, but it's finally just one more mile. Peaches are sold and all giving up with that Humpty style. At the Caldwell's, cross from the blacktop. She's Eurasian, met her at the quick stop. We danced that.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that. I definitely sidechained the kick for the bass in this song. Yep. I just did that at an earlier stage, so it's already printed in the track. I should say, like, when I'm actually recording the tracks, sometimes I do stuff that, like, basically always happens, like sidechaining the kick and the bass. And then I just print it, so I don't necessarily have it running on here. If I have too many plugins running on this computer, it will just explode, basically. And thanks very much, guys. Yeah, I'm glad you like the Jeff Buckley covers. In my humble opinion, I do think there are very few people that can do Jeff Buckley. And like, even myself, I think like there's only a few songs that I can do well. Some of the others are just so difficult. And the problem with Jeff too is that he doesn't have that many songs. So I feel like if I cover him too much, I'll run out of songs to do. But I got invited to that Jeff Buckley tribute concert again last year. And I basically begged the organizer to do Hallelujah because it's the one song that I feel like I can do decently well. Yeah, I agree with the ideas from past albums. I think this album has a similar vibe to it in that period between By the Way and Stadium. I think in Stadium and By the Way, like, John had a very strong idea of what sounds he wanted. But with this one, it's a lot more flexible, I think, which I think is a good thing. But it does sound like that period in between By the Way and Stadium, in my opinion. So let me talk about my mastering bus. I don't do a lot of stuff on the mastering bus. Like for this song, if I'm doing an actual, like, again, like a song for a client or something, I generally won't EQ much on the master bus because it's probably something you should have fixed in the mix. But I'm trying to pump these YouTube songs out in a short period of time. Otherwise, I will just spend so much time doing them. So it's just important for me in general that I do it quickly. So I will, after a few listens of the mastering track, I will like go and make a few EQ changes. So I think I felt the low end was a little bit too heavy. There was too much happening in the 350 area. Normally around 350, I'll like scoop out a little bit for the drums, and then I'll boost that area for the bass a little bit. I can't remember if I did that in this song, and that might have been why I might have forgotten to do it, and that's why I reduced it a bit in the final track. Well, thanks very much, Macy Junio, or Macy Junio. I'm sorry I'm so bad at pronouncing your names, guys. We don't have a lot of exposure to like Spanish, Portuguese speaking names in Australia, so I really appreciate it. Thank you. I add a little bit of extra saturation, just a tiny bit of tape and like the saturation knob. To be honest, this isn't really even on. But I think it's good to add a little bit of saturation to the entire track because, again, it just helps it sit in the same sort of space. A tiny amount of reverb. So I guess one thing I will do here is once I get to the final version, I'll actually mix it in mono, all of these volumes, because when you have stuff in stereo, it creates a illusion that it's louder than it actually is. And I'm actually deaf in my right ear. So when I'm mixing these tracks at the end to check the stereo image, I do it not with headphones on, but with my speakers. And I'll sit in the room. And because I can't hear out of one ear, I have a hard time getting the levels right with stereo stuff. So I'll just mix the song in mono. And once it's good in mono, I know that I can just visually see the left and right sides are even. Yeah, I'm deaf in my right ear. Yep. I can visually see that the left and right sides are even. So if it sounds good in mono and I can see that it's even, I know that it's good. Yeah, so when I'm listening with headphones, I can only hear one side. But if I'm mixing a stereo track, like I can use both speakers and I can hear both parts coming at me. I just have to make sure that I'm centered. That's all. I've always been deaf in my right ear since I was like 6 years old. So I've never really known any different, to be honest. I can get an operation. I did have an operation once to try and fix it, but unfortunately it failed. I feel like I'm doing okay without it. So, like, not with music, but in life in general. But it might be nice to fix it, and it might help perhaps with the music production stuff, I would imagine. So I use this S1 imager to, you can either widen the tracks or make them all the way down to mono. There's other ways to make a mono mix.
Girlfriend's back now, she's gone solo. She's the kind of girl who make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl who make you steal your child.
So you can hear it's pretty similar.
She's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't.
And then I'll just widen the track back up to 1. And normally I find a sweet spot between 1 and 1.1. I widened it, and the only part that's really wide is the guitars, and they're not playing.
Go smoking tears, now take my photo. She's the kind of girl who make you wanna go faster now.
So you can probably hear, I can't notice this as much with headphones on, but you can hear that the guitars get way louder when they're wide, but it's not actually making them louder. A lot of it is just stereo.
She's the kind of girl who make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny. I don't deny.
And then I'll add a limiter on, so I'll turn this down a bit first. I just use the Pro Tools limiter. Hey, like I I thought about buying Ozone. I watched a few videos on how to use it, and James, our drummer, knows how to use it. So if I need something mastered in Ozone or something like that, I'll just get James to do it. I find like the Pro Tool limiter works pretty well, to be honest.
Banging hard with those daddy issues, hanging out with that Chevron dude. Knocked her out, so I let her kiss you. Redneck fights, I'll Hercules bitch you. Big box, hopping on detox. Fast food trash when you're living in the crosswalk. Catch me out like motel hoes do. Blood on fries now, that's my go-to. She's the kind of girl who make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl who make you steal your job. She's the kind of girl, she's in the here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I don't deny.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I was so happy with the drums. Honestly, the reason they sound so good is because of the darbuka. I didn't expect to leave it until the end of the track, but it just makes the drum track. I'll probably use it a lot more in the future, to be honest. I like the idea of recreating the covers, but with a percussion track rather than a drum kit. So I'm a big fan of Michael League, who's the bassist from Snarky Puppy, and he released a pop solo album. Either it might have been earlier this year or late last year, and he did all of the drums using like Middle Eastern percussion, and it sounds so good. So I want to experiment a little bit more with using different types of percussion. I also just feel more comfortable with hand percussion than with a drum kit because I never have the space to set a drum kit up. Yeah, I agree. He's like yeah. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, he's like a 60-year-old man. It's very interesting, but it is what it is. Thanks very much, Alex. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to release this as another single or not. I'm more surprised that this wasn't the opening track to the album. It just seems like such a good album opener, and I feel like if this was the first song they released, people would have just gone crazy rather than Black Summer. But I think commercially they obviously know what they're doing. So we in the past, like especially for Cameron and his work, we often worry about some of the lyrics, like whether or not people from work will see it and whether he'll get in trouble for it. Luckily, most of the time, he's not the one that has to sing it, so... Yeah, that's true. Black Summer is definitely something that Josh wouldn't have written, right? So... Yeah, they get their singles right, obviously. Like, they've got a pretty good track record of having huge singles. So you can't really disagree with the choices. I don't even know if they will do another single from this album. It's been a while now, right? I know too, just the ordering of songs on albums are changing. Like a lot of pop artists will release a whole bunch of singles, and then they'll put like the singles that they wrote at the end of the album, so that when people listen to the new album, the first 6 songs are new songs. Because what will happen is people just don't listen to albums in one go anymore, right? So you can a lot of the big pop artists will have the the songs that you haven't heard at the start of the album, and then the 4 really big singles at the end of the album. And I think it's just a strategic decision from a streaming point of view. Yeah, I don't know about that accent. Hey, the Irish accent. Now that I've heard it, I can't unhear it. So if I do a cover of that, I'm not sure if I'm going to sing it in an Irish accent, to be honest. Thanks very much, Maurizio. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Yep. That one we decided to do live because there's just so many changes in the song. But yeah, it was fun to do it, to be honest. How do I say Mauricio? It's not Maurizio? Mauricio? I'm sorry. My knowledge of name pronunciation comes from British football commentators who probably don't say it correctly. Though I have noticed there's been more of an effort from them to get the names correct in recent years. That's pretty much it, guys, with the mix. I'm happy to show you anything else if you have anything specific. I probably have to leave in about 8 minutes. I've got something on this morning, so... Thanks for tuning in, though. I wanted to make a video on this, and I sort of thought if I'm going to just make it in one take, I may as well just stream it. That way, if anyone wants to listen in, they can. Favorite song from Smile from the Streets You Hold? Oh, God. There's one song, and the lyrics are something about a glistening clown, but I can't remember what that song's called. It's just so messed up. Oh, thanks very much. That's really nice to hear, Alex. Thank you. I'd like to do more stuff like this because it doesn't take any preparation time from me. Like I can just do the stream, and then Height Down is definitely my favorite song from Smile from the Streets You Hold. Yeah. I forgot that was on that album. Yeah, I'd like to do more stuff like this because I don't have to prepare for it. And like these days, producing is the thing I spend the most time doing. So I can just talk about it and not have to I don't really see myself as a guitarist. You know what I mean? Like I could spend time getting better at guitar, so I could do that. But I've always got Cameron around, and Cameron will always be a much better guitarist than me. So even though I feel like I can do guitar tutorials, and there's definitely stuff I can talk about. Like for this song, for example, I spent an hour trying to find someone on YouTube that plays it correctly, and nobody plays it correctly. And I'm not normally a stickler for accuracy, but at least when I do a tutorial for this, I can talk about how to actually play the song, and I'll probably be the only video that has it correct. But this producing stuff, I don't really need to prepare. I can just stream it, and then I can cut a video out of it later. So yeah, I'd like to do the collaboration thing. I guess my fear is always that people won't submit anything, but I guess it doesn't really matter too much. We did do that cover competition with Color Me In, and we actually had quite a few people submit, which was nice. And actually, a couple of people submitted covers of Red Hot Chili Peppers songs because we must not have been clear on like the fact that we wanted you to cover our song. So yeah, I think you're right. People definitely will want to do it. Thanks very much, guys. Yeah. It is early, but it's not too bad. It's the weekend over here, so... I'm just glad to do it at a time when people are actually awake on the other side of the world. I hope my accent's easy to understand. I know the Australian accent can be a little bit difficult for some people. And the sound. I'm assuming the sound was okay throughout the whole thing, right? But oh, nice, Chris. Well, you're up pretty early then. Yeah, I'm assuming the sound was okay. Were there any issues? Someone said it was ducking at one point. I think Oasis are from Manchester, aren't they? Yeah, I've got a friend who's a huge Oasis fan who always asks me to cover Oasis songs. But we're yet to do it. I like some of their songs. I think he made me like a bit of a playlist of deep cuts, like the B-sides and songs that he liked, and it was actually really good. They were a lot more alternative than I thought they were, to be honest. Yeah, it's unfortunate, hey. Yep. True story, I actually played Wonderwall once on a rooftop, and it was because my friend wanted me to do it with him, so that's the only time I think I'll play Wonderwall live. Yeah, I like Britpop though. I think it's probably because the time I grew up, like the 90s style of Britpop production has like just been so it's become so iconic, right? Yeah, that's right. Yes, you have to cover Oasis at least once in your career. I think Cameron and I once talked about doing it as an April Fool's joke, but actually like trying our best. Um, yeah, so patronizers. I used a Neumann U87 condenser microphone. To be clear, I got this because I know that big studios use it, and I heard that it's the best microphone. And I found one that someone was selling in Japan for a really good price, because I think brand new they're not cheap at all. And certainly the vintage ones are really expensive. This one was made in the late 80s or the early 90s, and the person selling it was selling it for like, I can't remember how much I paid, but it was like, a sixth of the price of a new one. And it's a really great microphone, especially on my voice. The frequency response of that microphone just makes it sound so smooth. I don't think it's a tube mic, no. I'm pretty confident they're not tube mics. In fact, yeah, I don't think it's a tube mic. But it sounds really warm and nice on my voice. I've used it to record female vocals, and I found it too harsh. And that's probably not the microphone's fault. It's probably because, as you can see, the room I'm in is an incredibly square room with a low ceiling. And I don't have a lot of sound treatment in here because, to be honest, I always sort of planned on moving to a bigger studio at some point, and I didn't want to spend the money on treating this room. But I'm still here, so I think you could get more out of the microphone in an actual studio. So my point is, it does sound really nice, and especially on my voice, it sounds really nice. I would never recommend someone who's like an amateur, or even myself, to go and buy it again, because it's just not worth the money. Like, you can get those SM7 microphones. That's the one that they use for this album for Anthony. Michael Jackson used to use an SM7. It's just so versatile, and you don't need to have a treated room set up to make it sound good. The condensers, because they're so clear and crisp, I can hear people mowing the lawn down the street because I don't have a soundproof room. There's a lot of reflections that come off the walls, so it's probably not the best microphone for the type of room that I have. I didn't know that at the time. I bought it years and years ago because I wanted a good microphone, you know. All right, guys, I've got to go get ready for someone's birthday. So thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And we'll try and cut a video from this so I can put it on YouTube. But yeah, hopefully I can do this again sometime. Hope you all have a really good day, and I'll see you soon. Hey, bye.